Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Montero, and I welcome you to my podcast titled Taking Wellness and Fitness to a New Level. Today's podcast features Grace Vandervliet, and the title of this podcast is Museums Matter. Briefly about Grace before we get started. Grace is currently the curator of teaching and learning at the University of Michigan Museum of Art, known as UMA. A former high school English teacher and art history instructor at Michigan State University, she focuses on how learning happens beyond traditional classrooms. She collaborates with gallery educators to design engaging museum tours for K-12 students and community groups. Her work emphasizes collaboration with partner organizations, teachers, students, and colleagues. She also maintains relationships with alumni volunteer docents and leads professional development workshops for classroom teachers across Southeast Michigan. Go Blue. A guiding quote from Decolonizing This Place shapes her practice, emphasizing relational organizing, a politics of friendship, and the belief that change is possible through intentional action. Outside of her professional work, Grace enjoys cooking, reading, and participating in risky outdoor sports. I am honored and pleased to welcome to this podcast the amazing Grace Vandervliet. In today's podcast, I'm delighted to talk with Grace Vandervliet, our Museum Art Education MAEA Museum Division Chair, and this past year's MAEA Museum Educator of the Year, and the National Art Education Association Western Region Museum Educator of the Year. Congrats, Grace. I first met Grace when I was teaching art full-time and attended a teacher workshop at the University of Michigan Museum of Art, referred to as UMA. And since that time, our paths have crossed professionally, and we have both attended the School for Art Leaders. I was the class of 2019, and Grace was the most recent class of 2025. Grace serves as our MAEA council member, and I am currently the MAEA past president. So again, our paths cross. And without further ado, Grace, welcome to this episode's podcast on taking wellness and fitness to a new level. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
This is going to be great. So I have a few questions to ask Grace, and then after that, you can feel free to just share more wisdom with all of us out here. Okay, you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Question number one. How did you become a museum educator, or what was your educational route?
I love the word route because it indicates a starting place and an ending place, but it also kind of zigs and zags along the way, and that is how I feel. Things happen. My route began in a small tourist town in Lake Michigan, which is great for outdoor activities and wellness, but I loved visiting cities because they have art museums. So my senior year of high school, spring break, my family and I went to New York City, and we went to the Met Museum of Art, and I took a tour and I loved it. And I said, that is what I want to do. And my dad said, he's a physician, that is not a job. That's what people do for fun. And I said, why can fun not be a job?
Right.
So that planted the seed, and I was determined to figure out a path to make that happen. So in undergrad, I did study art history and English. And I was also determined not to teach as a backup because so many people encouraged me to get a certificate just in case. But then I did an internship at the Muskegon Museum of Art, and it's a small museum. And so I was able to get my hands in every department. And I realized I love people. And teaching is constant learning and communicating and being with amazing people. So those are all things I love. So I did go back and I got an MA with certification from University of Michigan. And then I taught high school English. And I was the advisor for the art publications, the poetry, the design, in, all of our spare time, all of those extra hours that teachers put in. But I missed like a creative environment.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't certified in K-12 art, and I was just really needed to be around art. So
Mm-hmm.
I went back for grad school and did a master's in art history at Wayne State, and then worked at the Detroit Institute of Arts as an intern and by contract.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this experience working in Muskegon at a small museum,
Mm-hmm.
Detroit at a large museum, and then I taught design history at Michigan State University as an adjunct. But was like, okay, I'm still working part-time at the University of Michigan Museum of Art. I had a like small contract work when I had young kids and felt like I needed to just zero in on a
Mm-hmm.
place. And so an opportunity emerged at UMA, and I have been there ever since for 13 years. And so like the bigger picture of the
Mm-hmm.
journey, I guess, is that when you're in a career like a lawyer or a physician or whatever, there are often benchmarks and you're kind of coached into like internship and then the first position and then partner or whatever. There
Mm-hmm.
are these levels
Mm-hmm.
that you hit. But with education, it's really like kind of choose your own adventure, make your path. And so I was accumulating these experiences, classroom
Mm-hmm.
teaching, formal education, different size museums, and then piecing it together. And I don't think I got my first real job, real quote, no, the end goal until
Yeah.
in my 40s, which is great. And now
Mm-hmm.
still, I think the world has changed and careers have changed. And
Mm-hmm.
we think of not one job
Right.
forever, but like the accumulation of experiences. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's
Yeah,
a
that's
route.
awesome. That is a route. That's a great route. That's a great route. So, jumping now to UMA specifically, what has been the most challenging part of working in a museum at such a large university?
It's a great question. And my immediate answer is bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one concrete example is that, like, last week, some 5 coat hooks and a small bench were installed in our gallery education office. I started that process in August, and
Oh no.
it cost thousands of dollars
Wow.
and 9 months. And I truly could have banged this out in 3 hours, including the trip to IKEA, if
Exactly.
I had been like in a classroom or like
Yeah.
on my own. But there are channels that we need to go through when we're associated with a large university,
Mm-hmm.
like the design department, my facilities manager, my immediate boss. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have to weigh in. And I will say that's probably also an advantage
Mm-hmm. Sure.
that like we do want to hear a lot of voices
Right.
and the protections that we have by working through at a large university. Like I work with a trained security team. We have a
Mm-hmm.
children on campus like safety resources and background checks and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of measures that um, are amazing and are affiliated with
Yeah.
a large university.
Yeah,
So
the things you don't think about, right? And then you get into that and it's like, oh yeah, we've got to check with this person and that person. And yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So, in looking at what you've done, what would you consider at this point in your career, because it's not over yet, to have been the most fulfilling part of your career?
Mm. It's so good to reflect on this. By far, relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And when I listen to other podcasts about happiness or
Uh-huh.
about whatever, I think data is clear that like fulfilling relationships, and being in challenging relationships too,
Mm-hmm.
provides purpose
Mm-hmm.
and fulfillment, and that is definitely true. Meeting so
Mm-hmm.
many like genuinely interesting kind people. Like I kind
Mm-hmm.
of have these buckets like art teachers,
Mm-hmm.
parents and kids, U of M faculty, volunteer docents, my
Mm-hmm.
colleagues. So
Yeah.
I have this idea of a rubber band ball, that like just keeps growing and growing as I keep meeting people throughout the
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
And it's just like it's getting bigger than me, like this exponential, like of course we lose a few rubber bands along the way, like
Right.
intentionally or just like accidentally,
Yeah.
but it's truly like just gaining force and I love that our lives are of an accumulation of all the
Yeah.
people that we have touched and that have touched us and I love
Yeah.
that. And I
Well,
also love like another fulfilling thing is that it's constant learning.
hmm.
Like I never would go out of my way or even know to think about like Cambodian history or Inuit printmaking in the Arctic or
Yeah.
Congolese power figures or any of these like fascinating topics that come my way
Hmm.
because of exhibitions and art that I do, dive down rabbit holes now because of.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
when you think about visiting Uma, and you think about the even though it's a small physical space, relatively speaking, right?
Mhm.
What's inside of it is just immense, right? I mean, that's what I love about museums.
Mhm.
And you mentioned about relationships, and I know you and I often talk about books. So, have you heard of the book Mattering? It's
Mhm.
just when you're talking about relationships, it's by Jennifer Brahini Wallace. And it is, you can see, I'm just like tagging pages as I go, but it's all about relationships and what we do to invest in building those relationships and providing a sense of belonging to people. Because if people feel they belong, then they feel they're valued. And when people are valued, they invest more of themselves. It's this huge connection of
Mhm.
relationship building. So it reminded me of that.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I'm going to look it up.
It's a good one, I know. So this is little bit of a broader question because it's not specific to UMA. It could be in your answer, but um, what are museums doing to increase or maybe maintain, I don't know, your level of participation from the public, but public interest in visiting and learning about art? Are there any special things that UMA's doing, or do you know of things like nationwide that may be happening? I'm just curious.
I'll start by bridging what you just said and thinking about specifically Uma
Hmm.
and our teams, marketing, public experience and learning, um, curatorial. We have all kind of, I guess, mm, more overtly committed to invitation. Like I work across the street from an archaeology museum, the
Hmm.
Kelsey, and I don't know if I've ever in my life just popped in.
Hmm.
But when my colleague or friend invites me to a meeting, then I go and then
Hmm.
I experience like, wow, oh, I didn't know you had this right now. So same thing, like we often are in our habits, we're in our routines, and unless we have an invitation or a reason,
Hmm.
maybe it's getting a gift at the art museum shop,
Uh-huh.
maybe it's like getting a cafe and a coffee and meeting somebody at the cafe. If there's a reason and if the barriers are clear, like I know where to park,
Hmm.
this person who has invited me has made it
Hmm.
easy to get there. Um, I know where I'm going, I know what to wear, I know what time to be there.
Hmm.
Um, if those expectations are clear and you're there for this warm purpose,
Hmm.
it's going to happen. And
Hmm.
I think once you're in the museum, as you said, there's just like so much life to discover, and you'll find something that is beautiful, or you'll be there for an event with your grandkid and
Yeah.
read a story and have this wonderful memory and connection. So I trust that once people are through the door and invited,
Hmm.
personally, their
Hmm.
experience, it will be, of course we will work to continue to like
Yeah.
provide wayfinding and make their
Right.
experience like accessibility bags the
Hmm.
best it can be. But so I hope that the message that museums are sending is that art brings people together
Hmm.
these days. That's
Hmm.
what I hope that museums are doing to increase public interest,
Hmm.
that they can be this third space that's not necessarily so politically charged, even though
Right.
like art has meaning, like art has a
Right.
perspective. But some projects that Uma have has done is like an exhibition called Hey, We Need to Talk. And it was
Mm-hmm.
couches and art with conversation prompts, like in ho and a dinner,
Mm-hmm.
like hopefully bringing to people together of all kinds of opinions to have a
That's so
space to
cool.
talk and
Yeah.
think and respond and write and draw. And
Yeah.
so,
That's awesome. That's so cool. So, jumping to personal wellness and fitness. This is one of my favorite questions because I remember when you and I got together for lunch over the summer and I was in my car and you hopped on your bike and rode home and I thought, look at Grace go. It was so cool. So we're at that time of year where everybody's just like itching to get outside, of course. But are there any kind of activities that you especially enjoy, either solitarily speaking, is that
mm,
a word, or with your family, or both?
anything generally outside
Mm-hmm.
and social, I
Mm-hmm.
prefer. Although it is a good time, like taking a walk with
Mm-hmm.
the dog
Yeah.
or the in the woods by myself is a treat. And I don't often listen. My husband will go for long walks with music or podcasts. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my general life is so full of noise that I crave birds and
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and time. So,
Yeah.
um, but my favorite activities are biking, um, running. I
Mm.
mean, I don't love to run, but I do it. Triathlons, and I don't
Oh,
love swimming, but there's something masochistic in me that's like, you should do something that's hard. That's
wow.
not natural. But no, I think it's because I didn't grow up taking lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you learn a language when you're a baby, a kid, it's just like that's just natural. But and
Right.
swimming is kind of the same. I love cross country skiing and
Ah.
rowing and but the most convenient is running.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
the way I stick to that is
Yeah.
just I pay the price if I don't. So I have neighbors who um meet. We meet on my corner
Mm-hmm.
at 6:30 a.m. 3 times a week, and we just no matter what,
Wow.
we don't even text about it. We're there and we show
Wow.
up. So
Even like in the winter?
all the time. Yep.
Wow.
The worst time for me is August because it's so humid
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hot. But no, and then I like integrate. I bike to work. I bike everywhere because it's easier to park
Yeah. Yeah, for
your
sure.
bike than your car.
Yeah.
So I try to walk. I thankfully I live like pretty conveniently close to downtown Ann Arbor, so I
Yeah.
can you do that. But
That's impressive.
it just tries to motion is
That's so
lotion
cool. That
or
is
lotion
so
is
cool.
motion. I don't know what the key.
I
I don't
don't
know the
know, but
phrase.
I'm so impressed. I am so, so, so
Oh
impressed.
no, it's truly that I pay the price if I don't do it. It's
Wow.
like if your
Mm-hmm.
car or washing machine, I would rather deal with maintenance on my own time
Mm-hmm.
than pay an exorbitant fee for a repair in a
Right.
crisis
Exactly.
because then you're at their mercy and I would rather like maintain.
Yeah. That's so cool. See, just such another impressive thing about you,
No,
seriously.
not that you
Seriously.
can control it. Like,
Oh
of course
man.
things happen, but
So I'm going to jump back to Uma for one
Mhm.
final question. Thinking back to the amazing exhibits that you've had at Uma, which one would you consider to have been the most rewarding for any reason at all with either school teachers or with students? Like, what is one experience that you just go, man, that was it?
Mm, that's such a good question. I think any exhibition that allows for choice,
Mm-hmm.
for movement, and for making connections, like either formal or thematic.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I'm going to be quick, but three come to
Yeah.
mind. One is called Take Your Pick, where there were 1,000 snapshots around a small room, and each photograph contained a story. They were just regular vernacular snapshots.
Mm-hmm.
And visitors came in and they voted for their favorite, numbered 1 to 1,000, and the
Wow.
top 250 Uma acquired into our permanent collection. So
Oh, how
there was
cool.
everybody had a stake in the game,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you could tell a story about how this connected to your life. And
Wow.
the winner was a biracial couple on the beach. And the stories around that were so powerful. Like,
Wow.
those are my parents. This is my
Yeah.
life. Like,
Oh, how cool.
so that was definitely a winner. And then Silver Linings was a traveling exhibition from Spelman in
Hmm.
Atlanta, to have like specifically like just powerful women, Black
Hmm.
female artists on in one room, like Faith Ringgold, Carrie Mae Weems, Benny Andrews, like Beverly Buchanan, just heavy hitters of
Hmm.
beautiful artworks. Um, it was very powerful.
Hmm.
And then finally, Art at Home, which was
Oh.
a recent exhibition of 75 artworks that U of M student curators selected.
Ah.
And students living in the dorm came and ranked their favorites, and then got to take home a work and live with it for the semester, like a
Oh.
real artwork by a professional artist. And those, by and large, are accessible, colorful, vibrant.
Hmm.
And we did parades, we had bingo sheets, we had search and finds, we had gallery walks, and students like could find connections like this one has trees, that one has trees.
Uh-huh.
So I loved it. And it's going to happen again and double in size to
Wow.
150, and that will be
Wow.
up next year. So
Oh, how fun.
I know.
That is
Those are my
so
top three.
cool. That's great. That's so awesome. So we've come to the end of the podcast, but if there's anything that you wanted to share about either your time at UMA or MAEA or NAEA or anything at all, how about, oh no, I have a question for you. Other than your trip with your family to the museum, what other museums in the United States do you love? Top three. Uh oh.
Um, I'm gonna stick with art museums because
Hmm.
that's where I live
Yeah.
most of my life. But my top art museums have studio spaces in them.
Oh.
Flint
Oh, yeah.
and Toledo,
Oh, yeah. Toledo.
and I mean, hard not to say Crystal Burgess, but I'm going to say Minneapolis because they
Oh.
have committed to like indigenous artists and that
Hmm.
have reimagined their floor.
That's great.
So that's a tough question because I could go on
Well,
a
I
while, but
figured.
I'm
I know.
sticking
I'm
to
like,
three.
come
You
on.
said three, so I said three.
That's right. That's
Uh,
right.
right.
So now I'll turn it over to you if there's anything else you wanted to share at all with a young budding museum educator. No, anything.
Um, I am excited. I am going to be teaching a class through the U of M School of Education
Mm.
in the fall about how to become a teaching artist, no matter what your craft is, like dance,
Oh, cool.
poetry,
Hmm.
visual art,
Hmm.
because so often there are creative people who are thrown into teaching with no preparation as a gig economy. Like you need to teach
Hmm.
a workshop on printmaking and
Hmm.
to third graders. And
Hmm.
so this is a crash course of how to really understand um, teaching as communication. So I'm excited about
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
for the field. And I
Yeah.
really hope that that's a direction that the field of museum education and like
Hmm.
particularly can offer
Hmm.
to the landscape of arts education more broadly. Um, but I think like I was reflecting just on my role in general as a
Hmm.
division chair,
Hmm.
and depending on the size of your institution, whether you're a K-12 teacher or whatever, often art teachers and museum educators are the only one in the building.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's a small, few
Yeah.
colleagues, but where do you find your people?
Right.
And Jane, you have been the biggest encourager of this, of creating a flourishing network.
Mm.
I have just looked to you for that, like to create a supportive network with no big agenda, but
Hmm.
bring people together with the purpose of supporting each other,
Hmm.
maintain an active directory,
Hmm.
connect individuals, and have like virtual and in-person meetings, not
Hmm.
too often, don't overload
Right.
people, but just be there
Right.
and operate on this invitation
Hmm.
basis, right? Um,
Well,
so
thank you for
I'm
saying that.
coming off of
Hmm.
NAEA in Chicago,
Yeah.
and I have this image of elevator doors opening in the lobby and six grown adults emerging, dressed head to toe in rainbow glitter with crowns and top hats on.
Uh,
And it struck me how in this time and society, like it was a magical, palpable universe, like an alternative way of
hmm.
being that was creative. It was uplifting, and you
Yeah.
walked in the room and you felt the magic. And I
Yeah.
feel like if middle school teachers can hand out X-Acto knives to a classroom and manage that,
Yeah.
we need more of that in the world.
Right.
We need more connection with creative, uplifting people. So
Yeah.
it's I would just my plug is to anyone to like you will be a more whole, well, like
Hmm.
you will feel your well-being
Yeah.
increase if you are around people of like art educators. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And it's I appreciate you saying that about kind of how you see me or my
mhm,
role, but I've thought a lot about that because other people have said similar things to me before, and I don't attribute it completely to Sal, although the School for Art Leaders was so fantastic. But I think it came from the fact that when I was young, my family moved from Virginia when I'd finished fifth grade to California, and I was entering sixth grade, and I left my close friends that I'd had since kindergarten, but we stayed in contact by writing letters. I mean, this was so long ago, right?
mhm, mhm,
And we're still in contact, not all the time, but we're still in contact. So I think there's something about maintaining connections that has
mhm,
always been really important to me. And I think, I don't know if it's because of that, but I also think, the pandemic had a lot to do with it. And how were we going to keep people together? And I started these wellness Zoom meetings for the SAL cohort from my year, and
mhm.
things like that that just bring people together.
Yep.
And I also think so much of it has to do with just having a positive outlook on how we can be. And if we have people together with, like you said, like no agenda, like let's just get together and talk. It's like your museum experience about getting together and just talking about art. There's not a necessarily like end goal per se. There's a quieter goal of
Mm.
creating community or building relationships. I don't know. I think
Oh, I
it's very
love that
interesting.
phrase, a quieter goal. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Mm,
So I thank you,
beautiful.
Grace.
Thank
Thank you.
you. What a fun
It's been fun.
conversation. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. That's a wrap on today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to talking again next time. Have a great day.